I had a sexual relation with a woman that went very badly. Well, actually, it went well when she was doing stuff to me. I did go to completion. But then when I tried to like reciprocate those things, I was not doing a good job. She was trying to give me constructive criticism, which I really appreciated, but I couldn't seem to figure it out. She was like, easier. And I was like, I'm okay. Is this better?
When you're trying to give pleasure and you don't know or think it's going well, it feels like bombing on stage.
Yeah, but I think worse.
But first, a word from our sponsors.
Welcome to the Man-Whore Podcast.
What's up, all you voters, voyeurs, and big titty motorboaters? This is Billy Presida, and you are listening to the Man-Whore Podcast. Boop, boop. Sex-positive conversations. Yay for subtitles. This week on the show, I've got on comedian Laura Merli. We're talking about dating on the autism spectrum, sexual confidence, and not knowing what to do in bed with a chick when she's finally in bed with one. All that and more coming up very soon for you. First, the Naked Comedy Show. Oh, you missed a night. You missed such a night. It was such a beautiful night. I think it might have been one of our most naked comedy shows we've ever had. So many naked people in the audience. Even the ones who didn't fully get naked. I saw a lot of people get topless, take one titty out the shirt. The comedians, we were really hanging out naked. I mean, the 9 o'clock show, after the second comic, everybody, normally the comics get naked right before their set. Maybe they go strip down to their underwear to like warm up to it. And once they get off stage, like it all comes right back on. Nah, after the second comic, everyone who had gone up is naked. People who haven't gone up yet are naked. I had to ditch my robe because I didn't want to be uncool and not have it all out. So it was just a really fun fucking night. You missed out. But don't worry, we'll be back next month for the 2-year anniversary, September 26th. Stay tuned. Tickets out next week. I did a long-distance relationship my freshman year of college. It wasn't the longest distance. I was in NYU. She was up outside of Boston at Tufts. I honestly did not think I would do long distance again. And yet here I am. The distance makes vulnerable all the typical jealousies that can arise when doing polyamory or non-monogamy. It's amplified. You're worried that your partner goes on a date and then it's like, but what if that person steals my partner away from me? So when it's from across the country, you know, you don't get to have that reestablishment date or sleepover or whatever to like remind you, no, I'm safe. This relationship is solid. And they're right here snuggling up next to me with or without the cum in the back of your throat, you know? And so with the distance, you don't have that. You can do a phone call, but still not the same. Long distance can very easily confuse jealousy with envy. I recently looked up the difference between envy and jealousy during a phone call with the girlfriend. Jealousy is the feeling or fear that someone will take something you have. Envy is the feeling of wanting something that someone else has. I guess envy is also kind of like covet, which is a sin, according to your 10 commandments. But George Carlin, he whittled that one away. He said, look, your neighbor gets a dildo that sings "Come All Ye Faithful" and you want one too. Coveting is how you keep the economy going. So it's like, is someone jealous that the partner went off and did things? Or is it simply like, wow, I want what that date had, which is physical time with you? And would I feel differently if I were in the same geographical location? Fuck, even the same time zone. A lot of the plays in my typical boyfriend playbook are not at my disposal. The long distance is like having like a key running back like out on injury, and you can't use a chunk of these plays without Breece Hall because, I mean, he's fucking Breece Hall. And when all you've got left is a couple of rookie running backs and an undrafted free agent coming off an injury, you're a little limited in the plays you can run to show your affection, your love, and all that. So I've been leaning on the picking a date and having a date night. Because I think of, okay, like what's the closest corollary we can have in a long distance relationship to like something that's real, that's a date, okay? Like a date night can be like a date night. I'm going to set up like my background and I'm going to wear something that I would wear on a date. And I'm going to make sure all the stuff is charged so I can try to have some sort of an uninterrupted time with you. I'm going to light some candles. I'm going to set the lighting. I'm going to make it intentional and special as much as I can. And I like that to be different from casually going on FaceTime and then like just casually hanging out on. And I like to keep that separate from casually hanging out on FaceTime. That's the equivalent of texting her and saying like, oh, hey, you want to like hang out in a few hours? Or, hey, if you're not doing anything, like want to come over. That's the impromptu, unannounced FaceTime, unplanned FaceTime call. Anything I can do to make it feel like we are physically together, even though we're not. And something my girlfriend and I do is we have these like really epic long phone calls. Very often we will be on a call for like 3, 4, sometimes even 5 hours together. Kind of see like by accident, we didn't plan it that way. And because she's 3 hours behind me and stays up kind of late cleaning, it opens up the space for this thing. And I don't know if you're going to find it cringe or not, but gosh, I think it's the fucking cutest. And I wake up like I did today feeling so fucking happy. She likes to, oh gosh, I hope she doesn't hate me. She likes to hear me go to sleep. I remember the first time it was like we were just on the phone and she asked if I would just keep the phone on next to my bed. And we would kind of talk as I would sort of drift and slowly fall. And she knew I'd be asleep when I stopped responding to certain things. And then when she could hear maybe like just a little bit of snoring. And when I wake up the next morning, like the first thing I do is I open my phone and I check to see how long was she on while I was asleep before she went to sleep. And it's maybe the closest thing I'm going to have to like falling asleep next to her for a good chunk of time. I was having trouble sleeping last night. We had date night. It's part of why you're getting this episode when you're getting it instead of at midnight. And because I had recorded like 3 different intros that I just didn't freaking love. And then it was time for my date. I thought, the people will have to wait. I had trouble falling asleep and I kept waking up and she was still on the phone. And I can hear her moving stuff around or moving this pan or shuffling something. And I'd say something and she'd say something back and I knew she was there. And it makes me feel very loved. And so I wake up today after what was honestly like yesterday was a pretty stressful day for me. I just shit wasn't going the way I wanted to. I started spiraling about problems that maybe weren't really problems. And I was having trouble focusing because Adderall shortage. And it wasn't that I was going into date night, honestly, not super in the mood, not feeling like we were going to be on very long. I thought, okay, I may only be able to do 2 hours. But as soon as her face popped up on the screen, everything felt better. If you're in a long-distance relationship or have been for a very long time, shoot me an email at manwhorepod@gmail.com with your long-distance dating tips, tricks, and warnings. I get a few of them. I'll share them here on the pod. These were, by the way, the topics of my failed intros, which I might turn into a bonus episode for the Patreon people tomorrow. The topics were Matchbox, which is this like singles mixer thing here in New York. You pay $40 to get one match. I don't know about that. At least at speed dating, you get like 15, 20, 30 opportunities to fail with a woman. I would like more swings at a bat. A Reddit encounter gone wrong. Oh, no. I still came, but it was wrong. And Doug Emhoff's DNC speech. Doug Emhoff out here setting unrealistic expectations on a grown man openly expressing love for his wife. Those were the topics. Sorry you're missing out, but we got to get to Laura right after I tell you about the Peep Show. Do you know about the Peep Show? Longtime listeners know about the Peep Show. It is our long-standing, dirty picture sharing, compliment-fueled group chat. This is a group chat that's been going on for like 7 years? Rhonda, can you confirm 7 years? Does that sound right to you? My most exquisite Patreon members and I have been in this group chat sharing nudes and boosting each other's self-esteems and dropping the sickest gifts for a very long time. At this point, I have a feeling I could identify members of the Peep Show solely based on boobs and dicks. I think I could do it. There's a few butts I also think I could recognize. And it is always so much fun when a new person joins because all you have to do is say, "Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm new here." And just everyone's like, "Hi, what's up? Welcome to the crew. Here's my dick. Check out these tits. We love you. We're happy you're here." It's a beautiful community, an extension of our other totally free community, the Champagne Room on Discord. And I don't promote the Peep Show very often. I feel a little icky trying to sell a group chat of my listeners' nudes to you, but also that group chat keeps telling me that I should promote the Peep Show more often because they want me to make more money. Isn't that so sweet? So if that all sounds fun to you, if you're not a creep, if you can follow directions and be chill, go to patreon.com/manwhorepodcast, join up at the Peep Show level, and I hope to see you in there. And you'll also get a fan whore appreciation moment right here on the pod, a shout out from yours truly. Like today, I want to say a big thank you to Happy Yoga Dogs. You have been a welcome addition to the Champagne Room. We all enjoy when you pop in there. You have a very pleasant username. Thanks for making the server just a little bit more joyful, in higher spirits. And thank you for supporting the Man Whore Podcast on Patreon. One more time, become a member today at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. If you use an iPhone, join via a browser or your desktop to avoid Apple's 30% surcharge. I am told to say, Android users, I guess you're okay with your green text and shit. Today's guest is comedian Laura Merli. Check out her half hour on YouTube, Belly Slappin' Fun. And for now, enjoy my conversation with Laura. Enjoy ad-free episodes at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast.
I'm open to, a wide variety of possibilities, and yet a very limited amount of possibilities at the same time. Because I unfortunately get this, I hate this word, but I don't know what other word to use. I get the ick very easily with people. Like there can be very little things can just make me not attracted, and then once I get that, I can't really overcome it, or else I haven't figured out a way to overcome it.
But it's a good time to say I'm here with comedian Laura Merli. Hello.
Hello.
What are some recent icks that just completely turned you off?
If someone kisses weird, I can't deal with that, because I feel like other things you can kind of explain, like, oh, I like to be touched in a different way or something like that. But if there's not chemistry with the kissing, then I feel like I just can't deal with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's very disappointing if I have a great date, a lot of chemistry, very pretty, and then the kissing, like if we can't find the rhythm, that's unfortunate. Yeah. It's a rhythm.
Yeah, somebody once described to me that kissing was like having a conversation. And I didn't really understand what that meant at first. But then recently I had a situation where it really did feel like we were having two separate conversations, and or at least dancing to two different beats. And I was like, uh-oh.
If you had to describe your beat, how did you think you'd describe it?
I would say that I was doing something more along the lines of like a fish, and he was doing something more along the lines of a lizard with like a
lot of like tongue darting.
Yeah,
in and
tongue
out?
darting. And the tongue darting was freaking me out a little bit. And
sometimes someone will put her tongue in my mouth and then move it around so fast that I'm like, I feel like she's doing that just because she feels like she's supposed to do something with her tongue.
Like it might be exciting if it's fast.
Yeah, but it's like you're doing too much. It's like an uncle who's like going too hard at the wedding on the dance floor. You're just like, do less, do a little less. But Uncle Tim, pull back.
Did you watch that Olympic breakdancer from Australia who everybody's saying is like a crazy drunk aunt?
but yeah, kissing can be very unfortunate when it's
Yes.
bad. What are some other icks you've had recently?
If someone seems not super independent, that can kind of grate on me too, like too needy. And this is so hypocritical because I can be a needy person, but I feel like you don't want two needy, immature people together. Yeah. Like somebody needs to be the more normal person.
Yeah, if someone's going to be needy, then someone needs to take care of a baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like especially lately, like I just don't have the mental capacity to like have a baby adult around.
Yeah.
And there was someone recently who was just like constantly asking for favors, and they were mostly little favors. So it was like, okay, all right. But then after a while, I was like, okay, how many little favors do you do for a person before it starts to equal a big favor? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
How long have you been dating? Were you dating that person?
I was only talking to them for like a couple weeks.
Wait, but like had you met and gone on dates, or?
We were like casually hanging out.
Okay. That'd be crazy, because I've seen screenshots of people saying, I've never met this man before. We've been talking on Tinder, and then he's asking to borrow money.
No, well, they would like ask me to like spot them for stuff.
Like money?
Yeah, like regularly. And I was just like, I'll spot a friend every once in a while, but like if this is going to be a regular thing, like I'm not rich. I don't want to pay for your shit.
It's also like you're not that person to me or yet.
Yes.
Like this is an inappropriate time. I needed to borrow money recently, and I was like, there was not a chance I was going to ask the chick I've been seeing.
Yeah.
Not a chance. We've only been seeing each other for like 5 months. Mm-hmm. Not a chance I would ask to borrow money.
No, that's not the appropriate person to ask for things like that. And I hate when people are pompous. Like if they're just bragging about stuff that they did or their accomplishments. I just find that very off-putting.
So you don't date comics?
I always say I'm never going to date a comic again, and then I often do because it's tough because that's what you're surrounded by.
It's also there's a common language we speak. Like yes. I kind of always wanted to date a comic. Yeah, like I always feel like that sounds like it would be fun.
Well, it's tricky because it sounds like it would be fun in an ideal situation. And there are a couple comic couples that I'm like, oh, that looks so cool. But a lot of comics are like full of themselves or have like all kinds of issues. And I have all kinds of issues too. So sometimes it just doesn't match. But I do also just hate explaining comedy to people. So in that sense, it could be cool if it works out someday. Because it's so hard to explain the obsession and the drive for this thing that a lot of people just don't understand it at all. Like my not that this is like a romantic thing, obviously, but my parents don't understand why I do this at all. And they're constantly just like so how much did you get paid for that? That show or that show? And like a lot of times, you know, sometimes I get paid for comedy, but a lot of times I don't. And I get other things out of it and they just don't. They don't comprehend. I
drove 5.5 hours to middle of nowhere, Virginia over the weekend, not getting paid, you know, something that makes like a lot of sense. But like, it's weird to explain to people like, oh, well, they booked me to do a half hour and that's just, it's harder to get half hours to do. So I'll go break even if it means I get to do a half hour.
Totally.
They let me do 45. Crazy. It was fun. But it's just, but like that's a weird concept to them because they're so busy thinking about the money. I'm thinking like, oh no, I have the opportunity to stretch my legs on stage, and it's hard to get that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to understand like why you need to go to an open mic at midnight on a Sunday.
Yeah, because you need to always be grinding. And also, why that has to come first in a lot of contexts. Like, I was with someone once and I thought that we were going to be on the same page because though he didn't do stand-up, he was really into improv. So I was like, I think he will.
Bigger red flag.
It is, but
they're all friendly and shit and smiling and nice to each other. Improvisers, what a bunch of losers.
Yeah, fuck niceness.
They all hang out together and get drinks after their show. Fuck that.
That's one thing I miss about, I used to do improv before I did stand-up, and I miss the like hanging out afterwards. Like it makes me kind of sad how I understand everybody's busier with stand-up, but how after mics or shows everybody just like disperses. But anyway, he didn't quite understand, even though he said at one point that part of what attracted him to me was my intense drive to do something in particular and stand up. He got very frustrated with me, you know, taking a long time to plan certain other things or not being as available or like canceling things. We just weren't on the same page with like, well, if I have a big audition, of course I won't go to this thing we planned. Of course we can reschedule that. And he was like, he got very upset. Yeah.
But you have dated comics.
I have,
or
yeah.
One.
I was in a long distance relationship with a stand-up comic who we met. We both lived in Boston. That's where I started comedy. Okay. And we were just friends there. And then there was like some flirtation, but it didn't really get anywhere when we were in Boston. And then over COVID, I was really bored. And I went to the beach earlier that day and I had this like really intense tan line on my ass that I thought looked really funny, where it was just like, you can imagine the triangle of the bathing suit. So I took a picture of it, and I normally am not a sexter, but I had wanted to try it out. And I was like, oh, this person seems like he might appreciate it, because he had made comments before that were flirtatious, but it hadn't really gone anywhere. And he's a safe distance away because he didn't live in the same city. So if the conversation went completely off the rails, then, you know, I wouldn't run into him again. So I messaged him on Instagram, and we'd been talking like a little bit, but nothing like serious or sexual. And I was just like, hey, I took this funny picture of my butt. Do you want to see it? And he was like, yes. So then like we started initially just sexting once in a while, and then we slowly started talking more and more before that happened. Okay. And it evolved into this like very nice relationship. And then we did have in-person sex, like we eventually, and that's cool. But
it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. but
high five at the end.
High five. But I didn't want to do long distance forever, and he had seemed really interested in eventually moving to New York, but then it just didn't work out, and it kept not working out. Like we kept passing deadlines where he said he was gonna come here. So eventually, and then after a while, the sexting kind of like fizzled a little bit. And because I think that is even harder to maintain for a long period of time than in-person sexual chemistry.
Yeah, you gotta have some in-person to keep, logs on the fire.
Yes. And we weren't in person that often. Because it's really expensive to get on a plane and visit somebody. He was in LA. I was in New York.
I just got a ticket to LA for October. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going for comedy or for a person?
A person, but I can't afford to go anywhere for a person, so I have to make sure I can have other. LA's just a good city where I can also do other stuff. So yeah, but my girl lives out there for now. So yeah.
Oh, nice.
But then I go, I'll go for a week and a half. I'll book podcast guests and stand up.
Yeah, I didn't mean to be discouraging of your situation, but
I'm
situation
not a fan of the
didn't work
distance
out.
thing either. I'm, but she plans to be moving out here next year. So
nice. What's tricky for me too is I like to really get to know someone in like a casual way, usually before it escalates to something sexual in general. And so I do tend to become attracted to the people that I'm just around a lot, which is tends to be comedians.
They grow on you.
Yeah, they grow on me. And I find I'm currently not on any of the apps. And when I was on them, I found it really, really challenging because you're just immediately on a date with this person. And I mean, you can talk to them online, but I feel like you don't really get a good sense of someone by talking to them online.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't like to talk online to people for too long because then I felt like I was going to make up an image in my mind of what they were like. And if that conflicted with it in person, it would make me feel weird. So I would try to just meet up fairly soon. And then it just felt like this weird, tense double audition or double interview energy instead of just a casual thing. And I also find I often have trouble knowing if someone is interested in me. And I don't know if this is a defense mechanism or what, but I feel like I've almost eroticized the not knowing. It's kind of exciting to try and figure it out a little bit. But when you're on a date, it feels very not medicinal. What's the word? Very just we are here to decide if we want to have sex with each other.
And a little bit like a formality.
There's a formality that is weird. Whereas I kind of like the mystery when someone's talking to me and I'm interested in them to try and figure out if they're interested in me. That kind of builds tension.
Yeah.
For me in a way.
And that typically for me gets released, confirm that they're into me when we kiss at the end of the date. Mm-hmm. And then such a roller coaster if bad kisser, lizard tongue, it's just, damn it. We built up for hours for a letdown.
Yes. Yeah. It's such a bummer. It especially was a bummer recently because I did feel a really strong connection with that particular person. And then I didn't know.
You don't think you could give them feedback on the kissing?
I don't think so because that was actually an improvement over the first kiss we had. We had two, and the first one was really bad, but I blamed myself because I was weird about it too because I was kind of surprised by it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, next time I'm going to be not weird. So I did my darndest to be normal about it, and I was anticipating it, and still weird. Mm-hmm. Still weird.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to icks, do you feel like you get more icks with men or women or other option?
I think that, I think I probably get more icks with men, but I am very, very in my head about women because I have very limited experience with women and this might sound weird or it might sound normal. I don't know. But they're bodies are just more complex in some ways. Like it's easier to, and especially just because I've been like socialized to please men and that's been the expectation or whatever. I've just like learned more about that and I've had more experience with that. And I had a sexual relation with a woman that went very badly because actually it went well when she was doing stuff to me. I was really into that and I did go to completion, but then when I tried high five but then when I tried to like reciprocate those things, I was not doing a good job.
How did you know you weren't doing a good job? Because
she was trying to give me constructive criticism, which I really appreciated, but I couldn't seem to figure it out. Like
girl, I've been there.
Yeah. She was like, easier. And I was like, I'm okay. How is this better? Is this better? It just wasn't seeming to like get better.
You go through strategy A, strategy B. You go in for the emergency break class. That didn't work either.
Yeah.
I last year I did an episode of the show where I went down on 5 women, and after I left the room, they told a guest host how it went. Like they gave me feedback.
That's so funny.
And like so. And then I had a microphone next to the bed to like capture those sounds and those transitions. But like there was one woman, like I had 15 minutes with each. I could not figure it out. And just if it was the longest 15 minutes, it felt like I was bombing.
Yes.
Doesn't it? When you're trying to give pleasure and you don't know or think it's going well, it feels like bombing on stage.
Yeah, but I think worse, in my opinion, because when I bomb on stage, it is really bad in the moment. But then once I leave the situation where it happened, it kind of rolls off me. And when I go to get back on stage the next time, I'm not really carrying that with me usually, unless this very rarely happens, but I have had a couple times where I've had a string of bad sets and then I do get in my head a little bit. But with like sexual stuff, I feel like I do get very, very in my head about it and very nervous for like the next time. Yeah. And very much like before anything even happens, like, can they tell that I'm bad?
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like I haven't, if I've had enough bad sexual situations, and bad mean not even being anything crazy, just something if I lost an erection like 2 or 3 times in a row, if I came earlier than I wanted to go, so if something like that happened in a row, I could see myself getting in my head in those subsequent times. Actually, that happened earlier this early this year. To the point that like I went to go get a happy ending massage just so I can like have a what I know will be successful sexual interaction with someone, and then I came back after that, and then I wrote and hung this. I had this.
It says my body works just fine.
I just needed the reminder that we're having a good set.
That's so funny.
I just need to be reminded I'm good at this. Whether it's sex or stand up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it took me also a long time to even get comfortable with men. My first experience with a guy was like very bad because I'm like very uptight and I get nervous about like people touching me, and I get nervous about I just like didn't really know how any of it worked because I actually hadn't seen porn until like very late in life. Okay. Because my parents kind of had our computer on like lock and key.
And unlike the other children in this country, you didn't outsmart your parents with the computer?
Well, see, what happened was I did look at stuff once, but it wasn't like full penetrative sex. It was just like naked people. And my parents did this thing where it like gave our computer all kinds of crazy viruses, because this was like back in the day when like all porn sites did that. And my parents,
the kids today have no idea how nice they have it.
Yeah.
That like if they don't click on the wrong file, it doesn't shut down the computer and email everyone in your town what kind of porn you like.
Yeah. It was like really bad things happened to the family computer. And then my parents did this humiliating exercise where they individually like called us each into a room and were like, were you the person who was looking at bad things. And
Are your parents cops?
they're very intense to the point where people ask me all the time when they meet my dad if he is a former cop or a cop, and he's not. He just has that energy. He has like a militaristic kind of energy about him. But they really like then grilled me and were like, well, I don't think so-and-so did this because of this reason, or so-and-so did it because of this reason.
We all know Jimmy doesn't like anal, Laura. We all know.
And then I was like, oh, I clicked on it by accident. And they were like, the computer man who came over and looked at the whole history said it was clicked on like this many times. So it like couldn't have been an accident. And that really scarred me for some time.
I tried to use it was an accident too for the why is there incest porn on this computer? It was an accident.
You know how that just happens.
You just click on a banner 17 times.
Yeah. But anyway, my first time, I was also really anxious about it because
And how old were you, just for context?
I was like 19, I think. And which now I'm like, oh, that's fine. Who cares? But at the time I was extremely insecure about still being a virgin in college because it felt like everybody was talking about how sexually experienced they were. And I was so incredibly behind everyone. And that I was like, how am I ever going to catch up?
Yeah.
So this guy seemed really interested in me. So I kind of pounced on that and didn't really like get to know him that well first. So it wasn't like a super comfortable situation. And I didn't tell him that I was a virgin because I was afraid to. And I just really had no idea what I was doing. So he was like on top of me and I was like, shit, I never thought about what I would do with my hands in this position. Like now I'm like, you could do all sorts of things like, I don't know, like putting your hands on the back in different ways and stuff like that. But at the time I was just like, where do I put my hands? And I was kind of panicking. And then I remembered this perfume ad that I had seen that was like a sexy ad of a girl like digging her nails into a guy's back. And I was like, oh, I guess I should do that. I guess that's what guys find sexy. But he found it very so unsexy that I dug my nails into his back that he lost his heart on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure
Which
hurts.
totally makes sense in hindsight, but I didn't understand like that's what the situation was. And he didn't initially tell me like, hey, I don't like that. Stop doing that. So, but I could tell like something was kind of weird. So I was like, oh, I should scratch him more.
And he's enduring it because he thinks, oh, I saw the same ad and she must think that this is sexy. So, this hurts, but okay.
Yeah. So he like was like trying to keep going, but like he was just, I guess I'd gotten the ick from me because I scratched him super hard. And I thought I was really embarrassed because I was like, this was before people talked as much as they do now openly about how guys can lose erections for all kinds of reasons, and that's okay. And it's not necessarily a referendum on your body or you, or like if they're really attracted to you or whatever. So I got super in my head for a long time since that was like my first experience. And it took me a while to figure out that it was the nail thing, which now seems so obvious.
How'd you find out?
Now I don't even remember, but I remember it was like a significant amount of time before I realized like, oh, he didn't like being, most people are not into that. That's kind of like a kinky, more specific interest that some people have, but not most people, unless they tell you otherwise, don't want to be scratched up.
They don't want you to leave marks.
Yes.
Typically, yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
Wait, but do you feel like you have more sexual confidence now?
I definitely...
Well, not with women.
Not with women. I have a lot more sexual confidence with men. Like, I feel like I feel pretty confident there. But yeah, I don't feel confident at all with women to the point where, like, I do get really anxious about putting myself out there with them. There's also a lot of talk that you see online of, on like TikTok, like social media, people will post videos where they're having hot takes on various things. And I've seen like a bunch of lesbians talk about how they hate like the inexperienced bi woman. And I'm like, I totally understand where you're coming from, because it would suck if you're like expecting a certain level of sexual competency and you're not getting that.
They were like, if I wanted to fuck someone who's bad in bed, I'd fuck men.
Yeah. But then how are you supposed to learn these things? And I mean, I understand though, nobody wants to be your like practice person,
Sure.
but
like you've had people do things to you. So like, is there not, because again, I'm sincerely asking, I'm not trying to just do a joke, but like, is there not like anything to, let me just do to them, let me at least start with what I know feels good for me? Or do you just not know how the guy did the thing to you that you liked?
Well, I feel like I just have maybe different sensitivity levels than a normal girl. Like
oversensitive?
Like
or
I think my
undersensitive?
nipples are oversensitive and my clit is kind of undersensitive.
Okay.
So I think like my instincts are maybe different than what feels good to other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like I would imagine it would at least be like a starting point for them to then
That's true.
adjust. But then you say like, you say, yeah, I don't think I was doing a good job because she gave you constructive criticism and just
and it was good that I'm so glad that she did say something.
Yeah.
So that like, she wasn't comfortable, but I don't think I rose to the occasion, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sex is hard sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Are there no queer chicks who don't wear leather jackets who do feel confident in bed with other women? Because this is very, very common where a lot of, particularly by women who maybe don't have a ton of experience, who more often than not screw dudes, will go, I really like girls and I don't know what to do.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think I could put myself out there more, but I'm a little bit anxious to, one, because I'm kind of anxious about dating in general right now. I feel like my life is in a little bit of disarray.
Why would you say that?
So I just have been extra depressed in general lately, and I'm not 100% sure what the source of that is, but I also just feel anxious about relationships and social things with people in general. I've like always struggled with like social connection and stuff like that, and I feel like I've grown a lot over the years, but I still feel like I'm not quite at the level I like should be for my age. I'm 36 for context. And that kind of scares me. And it took me a long time to grow out of the idea that when you found the right person, you were just going to be obsessed with them and then everything was just going to be good. And now I'm very aware through reading about psychology and talking to different people and stuff like that, that's the limerence phase, they call it, when you're just obsessed with each other and everything's good, and it only lasts a year or 2 years maybe, tops. And then you have to work at and properly communicate with another person. And I feel very insecure about my ability to be in a healthy relationship like that, where you're regularly sharing feelings and it's like a give and take, and it just feels like even if I do find someone that I have a huge crush on, well, that's not going to last that long anyway. So why bother?
Well, the crush part, just turns into, my understanding is kind of a deeper seated love. Well, are you self-conscious because you haven't ever felt like you wanted to share those feelings with someone before, or is it just because you're currently 36 and single? Like, is it your current status or a lack of experience something?
Well, most of my well, all of my relationships have been pretty short-lived. So I feel like historically when I've gotten out of the limerence phase, I've just felt very trapped and very like, I want to get out of here. And it's overwhelming thinking about building like a real relationship that has more, I guess, like long-term legs to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also understand you have a touch of the autism.
I do, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got diagnosed, when was it? I think it was a couple years ago now.
Did you do like the big, like expensive test?
It wasn't that expensive. I have a woman that I see who prescribes my medication.
With this medication for autism?
There's not medication specifically for autism, but there are medications that, like the regular psychiatric medications, some of them tend to work less well or better for people with autism. At least according to her.
Because the reason I've never gone like a formal test, like I mean, like I had a friend when she gave me like an online test thing, and then gave me like whatever 30, 40 questions, and I answered them. She goes like, "Yep, you're autistic." But then there was like a pause, and then she said, "I opened a second browser, and then I answered the questions for you as your best friend, and my answers made you more autistic."
Interesting.
But like I've never done the formal process because I thought, oh, what? Like, okay, I get a yes. What? There's not like a pill I could take to make me more normal or something. But if you're telling me there is,
no, there's not a pill that can make you more normal. But people can take that into account for your medical history and then recommend different, like my therapist knows to, who's a separate person than who prescribes the medication. And she, uses that information to better advise me about, things to do. And
see, I just do that. I just kind of go like, I'm just declaring myself a thing. And I think that, and then let's just act like I am. And then all the suggestions that come in work and are helpful and useful for me. So I'm like, oh, well, like, I don't know if I need to go like spend the money for like a diagnosis, but I just need the communication strategies and the understanding of like how my brain's going to work and stuff. And
yeah, I definitely don't think people need an official one because depending on where you live and your healthcare providers, like it can be not that expensive or it can be really expensive. And yeah, it may or may not be covered by your insurance. For me, I took like the online stuff first and they all came back on the spectrum. But I was feeling very nervous that I somehow didn't know what I was talking about and that I somehow was it's hard to take psychological assessments when you know what it's for. Yeah. Because there is the
if I answer it this way, it's not going to make me seem autistic enough. It's like you
it's like in the back of your head what you think they're expecting you to say versus not expecting you to say. So then I'm like, well, was that influencing me when I was taking it? It's hard to say. And there was also a lot of questions that were very confusing, that were multiple choice, that took me a long time to figure out. Clearly
weren't written by an autistic person. They would have it would have been better worded.
Yeah, because there was a lot of questions where I was like, well, in this situation I did this, but in this situation I did this. So which option do I choose? And there were a lot of questions that left me very confused. And I wasn't even sure which was which or what. I just answered as best as I could.
You're like, oh God, this is like eating pussy all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
What am I
doing? So I wanted to talk to someone just to like be like, am I just making this up or am I autistic? And she, from like describing to her qualitatively as opposed to just pressing the option, she was like, yeah, that definitely sounds like that. Like, I'm trying to think of just like, you know, the stimming thing, which I don't do as much as I did when I was a kid, which is repetitive movements for people who don't know that term. When I was a little kid, I would walk around with a blanket and I put it in between my thumb and my, what's this finger? My pointer finger. Yeah. And I would just rub it over and over and over again. And I would rub holes through it. And I also would just run back and forth, not, you know, for a specific objective or because I wanted to get faster. My parents at one point was like, maybe she wants to do track, but I didn't actually want to do track. It's just sometimes I was so like overcome with energy or stuff going on in my head and I couldn't like express it. And I did this until pretty late in life. I would just randomly start running back and forth. And she was like, yeah, I think that is something. And yeah, I was a little worried about the, you know, the unconscious bias, but then I actually, just out of curiosity, took other personality tests because I was like, I wonder if any test that you took for something would just come back positive because that's in the back of your mind. So I took one for narcissism, and I also kind of expected to be within that because I do comedy and that is something a narcissist would do. Okay. But I actually scored so low on that scale, like much lower than even the average person. Yeah. And that made me think like, okay, I guess it's not just any test you take would come back positive.
How would you feel like your neurodivergency has affected your dating life? How does that show up?
Well, I think it mostly shows up in that I struggle in general with social cues, and dating is very much like a social dance of like different cues and things like that. And it took me I have learned a lot over the years, but there are some things that I think other people would have realized sooner than I did. Like, it took me a really long time to realize when someone wasn't interested if they didn't explicitly say, I'm not interested. Like, there was this one guy in college, and I'm so embarrassed about this now looking back, but I kind of built him up in my head before I even knew him. Ooh. And thought that we were going to immediately have this connection because he was like a friend of a friend. And my friend was like, oh, he's so great. He's like studying abroad. He's going to come back next semester. We're all going to be a great friend group. And I was like, I can't wait. And I just immediately thought like we were going to have this great connection. And then he came back and I was, you know, talking to him a lot, very interested, very like putting myself out there. And he just wasn't really interested, but I just didn't understand the cues because I was like, we're in the same friend group. We're a similar level of attractiveness according to my brain. I feel like this is going to work out. And then at one point, he said to me, look, oh, sorry. He said, look, I'm just not really on the market right now. And to me now that I know more things, I'm like, oh, that was him telling me he wasn't interested.
But we thought, then another time might be interested.
I thought one another time, and I thought two, he just wasn't looking for anything serious. So I thought he still was interested in me. He just didn't want it to be serious, whatever that meant, because I had heard in a lot of shows and movies, which is where I got a lot of my information on socializing from, that men didn't like serious commitments super fast. So I was like, that just must be what he's doing. and then we'll have a casual thing, and then we'll fall madly in love. And it took like, so I was still being flirtatious and stuff because I just didn't understand. I wasn't trying to be like breaking boundaries or anything. And then finally, thankfully, another good friend was like, hey, just so you know, like, he's not interested in you. He's interested in this other girl. And it hurt my feelings, of course, but I'm so glad that someone directly
Somebody
told me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think my like easiest version of that is like my easiest story to like describe the same pattern is I remember in 8th grade, I don't know if you had these. Like, remember the PTA, like the phone, not the phone book, but the PTA guide that had like all the families at your grade school, and the phone numbers. You guys remember phone numbers? Those were cool. I used to memorize them. I remember calling this chick Casey on a Sunday, and I say, "Hey, would you want to go out?" And she says, "Oh no, I'm busy this week. I have to help my mom with a lot of stuff around the house." Oh, okay. I call back the next Sunday and say, "Hey, would you want to go out?" She's like, "Oh, maybe another time, just blah, blah, blah." I called 5 Sundays in a row until the 5th Sunday. She says, "Oh, I don't feel that way about you." I said, "Oh, okay, cool. See you at school." Like, not a big deal. Now I know to stop calling and asking you out.
Yes.
I don't want to ask out someone who doesn't want me to ask them out. But if I have no idea that if you're being really nice, why would I process it?
Yeah.
Other people may understand that, but like, I know I didn't.
Now I have a rule for myself that if I reach out twice and the other person says they're busy, I will wait for them to contact me. And if they do, great. If they don't, okay.
Right. Because if they're into you, they'll contact.
Exactly. Yeah.
Some people, and I think a lot of guys particularly struggle with this. They think, oh no, I just need to catch them at the right time. Nah, if she was interested, she'll call you. Like,
yes,
she'll let you know.
You should put yourself out there and ask.
Yeah.
But, and like, you know.
You need to keep asking.
Yeah. Like why I do twice instead of once is like, you know, everybody's really busy and sometimes people do really want to hang out, but they just like are in the middle of something or something came up or they're insecure that they've, you know, taken too long to respond or whatever. So I'll give it twice, but no more than that.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll add in, busy, no big deal. Or this, particularly if someone needs to cancel, it'll just be like, cool. I'm gonna let you reach out to me to let me know when you'd like to reschedule. Like,
that's good too.
When you'd want to do it, because now I'm being so explicit of interested, and please don't put me in a position where I keep calling you every Sunday. Like you reach out to me. There are these things where like I think they seem. You tell me, I don't want to speak for you, but it's like to me it seems like common sense because it's like the clearest communication. Yeah. But people sometimes, like, I've been looked at real fucking weird. Sometimes it's because why you don't understand social cues. Another part of it has been, like, not understanding social dynamics, like sometimes gender dynamics and understanding why women would or wouldn't say certain things in certain situations. But for me, I go, well, once I learn about that, read some articles, hear some people's experiences, I have some new data to work with, then I just apply all that to the future, like to all my next encounters, right? But there's something about that like unspoken thing that just seems so confusing. But apparently that's what everyone's doing.
Yeah, totally. And I also, when I was younger, I think because I just spent so much time just taking in media, I had like, I was lacking in self-awareness. I just was like, yeah, of course I want to go out with the hottest, most popular person out there. And looking back, I'm like, yeah, obviously they weren't interested in me. I was a weird looking little freak. Like,
but that's not enough to, it's not as simple as that. It's not, I mean, it's not as simple as like, oh, nines go out with nines.
Yeah,
but like
it also is more complicated.
Nines aren't universally what somebody, particularly a TV screen, has told us a 9 is.
Yes.
Because apparently to some people, and I think these people are wrong, but for some people, I'm a 9. I think that's dumb. But good for them. Like 9 is different to different people, and even then, it's not as simple as 9s are with 9s.
Well, I do think back in the day,
that jock could have been into that weird little fucking autistic girl.
Could have been. Well, I think also back in the day, though, I was very, again, just like hyper influenced by media. So my idea of an attractive person was very much someone who looked like they were a pop star. And that's not necessarily my version of an attractive person now. But I think at the time, my brain, in part because I wanted to fit in, was like looking at like, okay, who are people saying is attractive? And not necessarily thinking like, who do I think is attractive? Like I remember there was a phase in middle school where suddenly every single girl had a crush on someone from NSYNC or someone from Backstreet Boys. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I initially looked at them, I did not feel anything in particular. And I actually kind of had a crush on Britney Spears, but I felt like you couldn't say that because there was like explicit homophobia back then. And then after a while, enough girls would regularly announce, oh, I have a crush on this one. I have a crush on that one. And sometimes they would even like get into little fights if they both liked the same one. And I remember thinking like, who's the one that, I'm supposed to like one of these. I got 10 options because I think they each had 5 in each.
Yes, I think that was the rule.
Yes.
Except 98 Degrees had 4.
Yeah.
Which is why they didn't make it. They didn't have enough. Nick Lachey can't carry all that.
Yeah, he couldn't be more than one person.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at this picture of NSYNC and being like, okay, just pick one. And then I saw Justin Timberlake was in the center of the picture. And I was like, I think that denotes a level of power that he's in the center of the photograph. And so I just like picked him.
But now for you, it's not, I see this and that's who I'm attracted. It's going like the data, the social data I'm collecting is,
yes,
I'm supposed to like one of these ones. He's in the center, must mean the best. So I would like to like whatever. It's more like, it's almost, I think it's, let's see if this works. I think it's kind of like how I describe really like centrist cuck politicians. I think Allendale would have been out. I think we would have been the same district, but like the New Jersey 5th, is our representative is Josh Gottheimer. My mom calls him Joshy, and I go like, well, Joshy is a centrist cuck because Joshy picks his positions based on what's in the center, not he has positions and they happen to be in the center. He goes, no, I just want to be in the center, and I will move so long as I stay in the center, as opposed to I think blank, and whether it's left and moves one way, right moves the other way. So similarly, it sounds like you're like, I want to be attracted to who people think is attractive.
Yes, because I wanted to get in the conversations when the girls were having these extensive conversations about who was the hottest.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a position. And I do want to clarify that now I am, especially after the diagnosis, I am trying to spend a lot more time thinking about, okay, like what do I actually want versus what do I think is socially acceptable and am just trying to appear to be more socially acceptable.
Yeah.
And that is a very challenging thing to kind of work out because I knew that there was something different about me for like as long as I can remember. It was difficult to connect with people. And so I would do a lot of observing of people and a lot of picking up different ways to be more palatable. And it's very interesting to me now thinking about what ways should I be palatable? Because, we live in a society and it's a give and take. And, you want to make other people feel comfortable versus which ways should I just do whatever is the most authentic to me, and I still am kind of struggling to figure that out right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that. And especially like as weird kids trying to figure out what is popular so that I can be into it or say I'm into it. That's a social survival mechanism for someone who's like, I don't know how to talk to the other kids. All right, let me just talk with them about whatever they're talking about. That's got to be safe.
Yes.
Right? Because to say that who you really had a crush on, I don't know. Like, was there a celebrity you had a crush on, but you didn't want to tell people? Besides Britney?
I think that was the closest to like.
It wasn't like an Uggo guy, like a Seth Rogen type, where you were like, I can't say it, but.
Yeah, I think that was like the closest to a real celebrity crush that I can. Oh, you know who I did also have a crush on, who was a guy, Pierce Brosnan. He was James Bond when I was a kid, and
The World Is Not Enough. I think that was the Halle Berry one.
Yeah,
I think yeah.
And my dad thought James Bond was like the coolest guy in the world, and would always talk about James Bond, and like took us to see the movies. And I remember just like looking at him on the screen and being like, wow, that is a good looking man. And I had like very, very intense, constant like daydreams as a kid that I've gotten like more under control as I've gotten older. But I used to spend like a significant amount of my time in just like a fantasy land, like not, and in my sort of fantasy land for more years than it should have been. I was this alien who like lived on a planet called Plutotron, and I was married to Pierce Brosnan.
And that one's weird to the other kids probably because like he's like too much older.
Yes.
Which is weird because they're all like, no, we can all be like obsessed with these 24-year-olds who like will totally bang us 13-year-olds. Weird. It's like, but it's like, it's all illegal. These are all illegal crushes, everybody. Don't police your Pierce Brosnan love.
Yeah.
But like you don't say that because then that you don't want that to be used as another reason to be an outcast when you already know like, ooh, I'm on the outside of something here. Yes.
Like I remember when I moved to a new school, I just had no idea how to approach other kids at recess. So I know it's hard for anyone to move schools, but instead of attempting to approach, there were just these benches on the far side of the playground, and I just sat on a bench and stared at people for quite a long time. And then like eventually a few weeks later, this girl approached me and invited me to play with them, and that I was very thankful to her, because so I kind of made friends for a long time through whoever wanted to be friends with me. And now another thing that I'm trying to do more as an adult is trying to put myself out there for friendships too, and not just be friends with whoever asks me to hang out with them.
This is starting to be, it's starting to feel harder to try to go and say, hey, you want to be friends as an adult than it was when we were kids. Well, I legit said to a man, like, hey, like, no pressure, no big deal. Like, you can say no, but like, I don't know if you like, do you want to be friends? Like, can we text? And even then, like, still only text him maybe like once every 3 weeks. Like, because I'm feeling cautious. Gabe Malika?
Yes.
He comes on he was on the show. I guess it was like maybe a year ago or so. Because he was doing that one man show about like friends. And he left being like, oh man, I wonder if we could be friends. And then I'm like, I don't want to, I try to be mindful of like professional boundaries.
Right.
But it's weird to be a grown man and say to another grown man, you want to be friends without an external thing. Scary.
Yeah, definitely scary. So I've only put myself out there a couple times in that way, but I definitely want to do it more because I want to be more in control of who I'm surrounding myself with.
And I want to do that with comics because comics, no offense to everyone listening, but like are probably they're kind of like the most fun people to hang out with. And I hang out with like true blue sluts. Like I go to orgies and the comics are more fun than the orgy people because the orgy people, when you're done fucking and sucking, they're not always very funny. They're they all
tired, sleepy,
or like really politically uptight. Like it goes, comics, it's fun chaos.
Yeah.
I enjoy. And so pre-COVID, I could go to the creek. And I know, like, I can just go and there will be, like, I know how to operate there, and I know people will kind of know me there enough that, like, I can walk into a circle of people hanging out. But now it's like I don't know where that permission structure is.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot. I really want to find a good third space, they call it, is where people go when they're not at home and they're not at work to congregate. And I want to find one that I can just show up at and know that there's people that I want to talk to.
I had that, but it was gambling backgammon in the park, and that got expensive, Laura.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've never been a gambler because I'm too tight with money. Yeah,
Very
but
wise.
that does seem fun.
Yeah. It's tough. But do you put yourself out there for asking people out? I know you said you're not on the apps, but like, will you approach someone and say, you're cute?
I have not approached someone and said, you're cute, but I will try to hang out with someone casually and just kind of eventually I'll make a move. I will make a move eventually if I feel comfortable, but it's rare that I just like see a hot person and I'm like, I'm going to go strut my stuff because I don't even know what I would say. And then also I don't.
Hi, you're cute is not a bad
Oh yeah, that
opening.
works.
I mean, it works, not works. It's at least honest and direct, and but it's also within taste.
I think that makes sense, but I do like to talk to someone first without the element of we might do something sexual. Like just to like have a conversation with them first and make sure there's nothing that immediately gives me the ick.
Sure.
Because well, a few weeks ago, I was really drunk and I was at this karaoke bar and this guy came in and I decided to just strut my stuff and talk to him. And I don't even remember what I opened with because I was drunk. But within the initial back and forth, I was like, yeah, this is going well. And then somehow it came up that he had just started comedy and was significantly younger than me. And after I learned that, I just was like a completely evaporated interest.
Yeah.
Because it's weird too now being 36 because I'm used to being able to go to bars and it's just like, well, if you're in a bar, like you're the right age. But now I'm suddenly old enough where
you care about the age?
Yeah. Like
what's your minimum?
I can't quite put my finger on what my minimum is, but
it can be not an actual age, but the age that they act. Because if a 24-year-old acts like a 34-year-old, you may want that more than the 34-year-old who acts like a 24-year-old.
That's true too. But yeah, he was 26 and I'm 36 and I was like, and I think that might have not been a complete deal breaker if he wasn't also a baby comic.
Oh, yeah.
Where I really don't want to hold someone's hand through their introduction to stand-up. And that might sound mean, but no. It's just like where anyone who just started comedy, like, we can have a chat about it for sure. But it's such a wildly different place. I've been doing this for like 8 years. I was in such a wildly different place when I started. And I know looking back, I was annoying to some of the veterans. But that's just how it is. Like I don't know.
I've heard, you tell me, fuck do I know, but like, have you come across any of this? And also this is with someone you might be interested in or just fucking dudes in general, but like newer dude comics, you know, wanting to take too much from people and like peppering with questions and trying to figure out things, who books this and who books that, and they don't want to do the work, but they want to know all the shortcuts, and like young men having the audacity to try to find shortcuts, particularly asking like the chick comics that.
Yeah, like he was definitely asking me, you know, some questions about comedy after he figured out that I do stand up, and I was like, ugh, I'll give you these answers, but I don't want to become your mentor.
Yeah, I want to like maybe sit on your face.
Yeah.
Like, we try to keep these separate.
Yeah, and I would say most people, men and women, but men probably more, do definitely think that they're more advanced than whenever they are when they're new in comedy, and will want to be on shows that they're not ready to be on. And it's just like, I don't want to walk someone through all that.
Yeah.
Like, they can figure it out on their own.
Yeah, and the discomfort of then trying to ask you for, again, help, like, hey, sees you're on a really good show, and then it's like, do you think you could? And it's like, I could ask them, but I'm not, because you're not good enough to be on.
Yes, you shouldn't be
show.
on the show. So, so then it feels like we're just gonna fight over it.
Then you want to deal with someone getting resentful because like he's not as funny.
Yeah,
that's another thing I'll hear is like guys who don't like. I've heard this, and I heard it from Pete Holmes. I forget who the female comic guest was, which is kind of part of the problem, I guess. But this was a long time ago. How like the guy who says he wants a woman with a sense of humor means like he wants a chick who will laugh at his jokes.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah. Whereas then I'm kind of like, fuck that. No, I want someone who makes me laugh. Like, I would love to date someone who's funnier than me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, guys can be a little audacious with that, which kind of comes back to the like whether or not to date comics. It's like, okay, you'd have to find a guy comic who is cute, into you, and good at comedy. Yes,
that's tricky too. Is you would want to find someone whose comedic styles you have a lot of respect for.
Yeah,
because it would be so uncomfortable to regularly watch this person if you're not into their style. And people who don't regularly do comedy, I don't think understand how many different styles there are. Yeah. And there's a lot of comedy that I watch and I'm like, I hate this. I don't like this. And I don't know what his style is, but I know that he's just new. Started, so it must be bad.
Yeah, his style is bad.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But that's got to be an ick. You don't want to see him with confidence run a bit by you and seem really excited, and then you have to say, like, that's just not good.
Yes.
For a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. We don't say that word anymore. Like, you don't want to be put in that position.
Yeah, it is really awkward. Like, I'm always willing to help friends who are like, I want to start comedy, like, where should I start? Or like, can I run a joke by you? But some of them definitely take criticism worse than others. Mm-hmm. And I will be honest if I don't think that a joke is working. Mm-hmm. And I say, it's okay. Like, we all try jokes that don't work, and you learn over time what works and what doesn't work, but you have to be okay with it not working sometimes. And I've noticed some people are just not okay with it not working. Like, they need you to always tell them that it's good.
Oh, no, that person will never be good at comedy.
Yes.
And you know what? They'll also never be a good romantic or sexual partner. Mm-hmm. That's the same guy who, when he's doing the finger blast the only way he knows how, and then you try to give him just a little, can you curl your fingers more? And then they get all butthurt.
Yeah.
And can't handle that you gave a hint on how to make you feel better, because it was never about making you feel good. It was about him feeling good that he's doing such a good job. Like, and that person's never going to try to get better. They just want to be told that they're really good.
Yeah. And with comedy, for the most part, I can divorce myself from it enough to be like, okay, this joke didn't work. That's fine. For the most part, I'm just, move on, and that's okay. The only time that I really get frustrated with it is, this is so lame, but my mom is very critical, and I always tell her, just don't watch my comedy. Oh, yeah. It's not for you. You're not the demographic, to be honest. Like,
you're not being unsupportive by not watching it. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm like, just don't watch it. But then, like, she'll watch it. She'll be like, well, this came up on my Instagram, so I had to watch it. And it's like, well, you didn't have to watch it. And then she'll give me what she thinks is constructive criticism that's just not nice. Yeah.
How else, are there any other ways that you feel like the autism has shown up in your dating life?
Well, I think it's mainly struggling with interpreting people, but I think it's also that, like, because I struggled even more with social stuff when I was younger, I have a lot less experience than a typical person my age.
Right.
Not that it's like, every single other person has, this much else experience, but experience does build on itself. And so that's been tricky thinking about, and that's another insecurity I have where I'm like, I feel like a lot of other 36-year-olds are more emotionally and sexually advanced than I am. So that makes me feel anxious putting myself out there. And then another, it has been interesting, reading about it and learning a lot about it has, I feel like, helped me accept some things about myself, which is a positive thing. But then there's also the negative that comes with it, where there's been this big backlash, at least online, where people are very doubtful of, if you don't appear what their image is of an autistic person, that you're like lying for attention. And I'm very anxious about telling new people because I'm worried that they think I'm lying.
Laura, if it helps at all, I promise you, you definitely seem autistic. I was like, I didn't know that, but in the pitch email, it mentioned like on the spectrum. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
No, but I also feel that as well, especially since I don't have some sort of like doctor's note piece of paper about I go this. It makes way more sense for me to be autistic. If I'm not autistic, that's weird.
Yes.
And everything in my life won't make sense if I'm not.
Yeah,
so it's
same.
Like, but I feel like I come across however I do. I don't think it comes across that way until someone gets to know me or whatever. But
yeah, another thing that I guess makes it somewhat tricky with being autistic is like one of the other criteria for autism is very few, very intense interests. So for a long time, I would really get down on myself for not being a quote unquote well-rounded person. Like I would kind of go from obsessive interest to obsessive interest.
okay.
And then when I learned about that, that's a trait of autism, I do feel more accepting of how I am. But it also can sometimes make it more challenging to relate to other people, because I find that a lot of other people can talk about a wider variety of things than I can. Like a lot of people have a lot to say about sports, which I just can't seem to understand. Or they have a lot to say about like this or that comes up. And I'm like, I spend 98% of my time thinking about comedy and then 2% of my time doing other things because that's my current special interest. So that's tricky too, trying to think of like, how can I be not annoying to other people as well, because I learned this term recently when I was learning about autism, info dumping, which is a common thing that autistic people do, where they'll just go on these really long tangents about their special interests and not realize that other people are not interested. And when I read about that, I was like, oh my God, that's been one of my big problems is I wasn't doing enough of a back and forth. I was just like, I'm interested in this thing. I'm going off on it.
Listeners, does that sound like any of my intros to you? Is that why you skipped them? Huh?
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. So like I do consciously now try to make conversations a little bit more of a give and take.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I'm more conscious of, okay, I've been talking for quite a while. Time to stop talking and nod or maybe ask them a question.
Yeah. That's very self-aware of you. There are a lot of non-autistic men on dates who don't do that.
Yeah, I have heard this.
I have heard this as well. And I also MC speed dating events.
Oh, really?
Often.
That's cool.
If you ever want to go, I'm hosting 3 this week.
Oh, wow. That sounds fun.
And I will like overhear the dates, or sometimes I'll go if women have a break, I might go up and just check and be like, oh, how's it going? And like, I mean, the last one I did, chick says, well, we spent the entire time and he did not ask me a single question. And so, you know, that's not, I don't even know if that's a spectrum-y thing, but look at that. But the info dump, that's very real. I get that.
Yeah. Well, I do consciously now also try to talk about a wider variety of things. I do consciously try to focus on like, okay, I've been talking about the same thing for quite a while. Let's like change it up a little bit. Yeah.
And you've got a special that is out now. We were just, I forget if I hit record or not, but the idea of it's you know, you've got a half hour. It's up on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Belly Slappin' Fun. It's on YouTube.
Ow. Okay.
You okay?
Yeah, no, it's the third of those slaps like stung different.
Yes.
But that's up on YouTube. I assume you talk about some of the dating stories and the autism.
I do have some dating stories, and I do have some autistic things in there. And even when I don't explicitly mention autism, which I do in a few jokes, it definitely influences a lot of my jokes. Like, I'm very set up punchline. I like to look at jokes in almost like a mathematical kind of way, which I think is related to that. And then I have a lot of jokes that I maybe don't explicitly say it, but are about social awkwardness or social confusion that are just through an autistic lens.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's out and it's publicly available for folks. And where can they go to find you, follow you, and check out the Belly Slappin' Fun?
Well, Belly Slappin' Fun you can find on YouTube. If you prefer short form content, you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Passive Abrasive.
Yeah, what's up with that handle?
I just thought it sounded fun.
So does Abrasive have 1B or 2?
1B.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the...
Because if anyone knows, it's the autistic chick, right? Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the challenge about it, is that even though it rolls off the tongue easily, I've noticed that a lot of people have trouble spelling passive abrasive.
Okay. Instagram, TikTok, Passive Abrasive, and check the show notes for a link to the YouTube special. Is there anything else you want to plug?
No, that's...
What, you don't have 7 podcasts? What's wrong with you? Are you even hustling, bro? Okay.
I want to have a podcast, but I've started and stopped podcasting so much because I like the talking, but the editing of it, when I re-listen to myself, I'm just like, wow, who the fuck would ever want to listen to me speak?
Well, I mean, the people who are going to check out Belly Slappin' Fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, if you got this far in the episode, you must like me. So thank you.
Go check that out, everybody. Laura, thanks for coming by. This
Thank
is very
you.
fun.
Yeah.
Nice to connect like-minded folks. And, why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
Bye.
That was so quick. I was like, bye. Before I even finished the prompt, you were just like, bye. I'm good. So long.
My hand is starting to sweat. That's holding the microphone.
You can share your thoughts about this week's show in the episode discussion channel in the Champagne Room, our super free, super fun, super friendly Discord server. Click the link in the schnotes or join up at manwhorepod.com/Discord. You can also send your thoughts, your comments, your questions, your titty pictures to manwhorepod@gmail.com. And as I announced earlier this month, you can also email me to secure one of my limited sex and dating coaching slots. Yes, I am in the coaching game. I am ready to sit down with my big walking stick and stroke a non-existent long white beard and impart some wisdom, some perspective, maybe help you with gangbang logistics. Because this has been a soft launch of my coaching services, I am keeping it limited for now at a lower price. So I only have 4 slots still available. And once everything becomes a little bit more hard launched, website, all that jazz, graphics, I will have more time and space available to help you out. But the price will also go up then. So do inquire if there's any spots still available at manwhorepod@gmail.com. I'll put out a bonus episode tomorrow. There's stuff I did not get to talk about that I wanted to. I'll tell you about that wild Reddit thing, and I went to Hacienda on Saturday. We can talk about that. So Patreon people, check that out tomorrow. Also, I'll have a new edition of Behind the Mic dropping very soon, where I spill the tea about this month's podcast guests. And I'll just say here, and this is all I'm going to say, is one of them came with a lot of fucking drama and a lot of fucking tense emotions. And, I'm going to let loose on Behind the Mic, exclusively on Patreon. Do not miss it. Fall asleep with someone you love, whether you're near or far, and stay slutty.